Before I start this video, I need to tell you guys that this will probably be one of the most disorganized videos I've ever made because I've set up my camera 3 different times now trying to get the optimal filming situation. So we're in the second bedroom, a room that you guys probably have not seen much of. And tonight I am going to answer some of your deepest, darkest questions about relationships. I'm also drinking wine out of a reusable cup because I'm accident prone and anything can happen. It definitely comes out fast. So I'm basically just going to jump right into these questions. I have them all written down in my phone. If you guys like this video, let me know below. Give it a thumbs up and I will be sure to film a part 2. Oh my god, my cats are fighting. Can you hear that? This is the story of my life when I film a video. Quick little disclaimer, you are more than welcome to disagree with my thoughts, and I'm happy to get into some constructive debates in the comment section below as long as you are respectful. So keep that in mind. I am not a relationship expert. I'm not a relationship therapist. I'm basing this on what I've learned over the years and my very weird dating life. Question number 1, how do you cope with insecurities or jealousy in a relationship? Are you a person who gets jealous easily? I would say I am not someone who gets jealous easily at all. I live with my boyfriend and we've been together for 5 years. And at the end of the day, like, we live together and I expect that he's being honest with me. If you've established a good sense of trust in your relationship and you both feel secure in the relationship, I think you can eliminate a lot of jealousy. But I also think that some people are naturally just more prone to being jealous. My agenda is not to shit talk my boyfriend in this video, but I want to say that Nick is the more jealous person in our relationship. And I think it stems from his desire to be protective. We've definitely had very volatile moments in the relationship and we've had arguments that stem from jealousy, but I want to say the majority of those were jealousy on his part. And I think if you're feeling jealous, you might want to take a step back and evaluate why you're feeling that way. And you may realize that it's because you don't have a sense of security in the relationship. I also think a huge part of not feeling emotionally jealous comes from the fact that I was a dancer for 6 years. Working around so many women, learning about them, and having a great appreciation for the women that I was working with really made me feel like I would rather be friends with a woman than feel jealous of a woman. I don't know. The wine's kicking in. Question number 2. Do you ever feel like you miss being single? I definitely feel like I miss parts of being single, but I don't miss dating as a single person as a whole. Like, I miss meeting people and establishing that exciting connection and just knowing that both people are mutually interested in the other person and it feels exciting and it feels passionate. But I think that's really normal and I'm sure Nick feels that way. We've actually had open discussions about it and talked about it like mature adults, and I think generally we've both felt that way before, but that doesn't mean we're not invested in the relationship. At the end of the day, I prefer having a partner that's there for me and I prefer coming home to my relationship. So it's kind of the trade-offs of being single versus being in a relationship, and you just have to decide which one you prefer. What do you do once the butterflies fade? Is that normal? This is a great question and the answer is absolutely yes, that is totally normal. I think when people refer to butterflies, they often refer to the initial period of a relationship when you're first getting to know someone. We often call that the honeymoon phase, and that phase is not going to last forever. Once you start to feel more comfortable with the person, once you guys start to go through different things emotionally, that is going to fade and it's pretty inevitable. But I do think there are ways to bring the butterflies back, or at least bring the excitement back, and that mostly comes from exploring new interests together, finding new things that you guys are both passionate about. So I do think you can resurrect the feeling, but it's not going to be quite the same as when you first met that person. and you shouldn't expect it to feel that way. So if you're feeling like stuck in the relationship or concerned that that initial excitement isn't there, you just need to find things to do with your partner so that you're still learning new things about the other person. I mean, Nick and I have been together for 5 years almost, and I still learn things about him, and we still have conversations that feel exciting, and when I look at him I still feel very attracted to him, but it's just not the same as when we first met, and I don't expect it to be. So yeah, it's normal. Don't freak out. After that feeling starts to fade, you just need to decide if you are invested enough in the relationship to take it to the next level. And I often think that the next level can be more exciting than the butterflies phase, but you know, relationships take constant work and they're hard. So if you're willing to stick out all the hard parts with the other person, then ultimately it's going to feel rewarding for both of you in the long run. Okay, this question kind of goes along with the last one, and somebody asked, have you ever gone through times where you love your partner but you feel like there's a distance between you, and or you feel worried that you're not in love with each other any longer? What did you do, and did those emotions change back into romantic love, etc.? Excuse me. This is another great question, and yes, I think it's completely normal to have moments where you feel distanced from your partner, or to have moments where you feel a bit disconnected, or just like the connection is not as strong as it has been in the past. And that's kind of like the ebb and flow of relationships. It's important to remember that there's always going to be uncomfortable moments in your relationship. There's always going to be awkward moments, no matter how long you have been together. And somebody that I am friends with who has been dating her partner for like, I don't know, 15 years or something, she was the first person to tell me, like, listen, you will always have moments of discomfort in your relationship, like where you and your partner aren't seeing eye to eye, where you're not communicating effectively, and where things might just feel a little bit awkward. And that's been my experience as well. I think this can also happen if you and your partner have very different schedules and you're both really busy. Nick is often working every day of the week, and we're on kind of different schedules. So sometimes there will be a week where we might not see each other hardly at all. We also both travel quite frequently. So if we're traveling without the other person, you know, it's a bit harder to make that connection feel as strong, but I think it's definitely possible. But yeah, I mean, I still have moments in our relationship where I feel like disconnected and detached, and sometimes I think like, what am I doing? Is this right? Is this healthy? When you are feeling that distance, I think the most important thing to do is to set time for you and the other person to be together and to feel connected. Another thing that really helps is making physical contact with the other person, even if it's something as simple as just holding hands or touching the other person's leg or rubbing their back a little bit, giving them a hug when they wake up in the morning. Little gestures like that can really make a huge difference in feeling more connected in the relationship. And I can very much say this is something that I need to work on, because sometimes I get so wrapped up in what's going on in my own life, and I let myself get so stressed out that I forget to do the simple things for my partner on a daily basis. And I think in general, Nick is pretty good about doing that for me. This is the last question that relates to the previous two questions, but I wanted to answer it as well. Do you get bored of each other sometimes? And if yes, then what do you do about it? Yes, again, the answer is yes. But it can be easily rectified by finding ways to spend meaningful, fulfilling quality time with the other person. If you're feeling bored, my suggestion is turn your phone off, spend a night with your partner, do something thoughtful for your partner, whether that's making dinner for them, giving them a massage, playing your favorite game together. Something Nick and I like to do is play Scrabble together, or doing something that you know that you both enjoy, whatever that is. Something that's engaging and doesn't involve you guys just mindlessly hanging out and not actually spending time with each other. But yeah, I mean, it for sure happens, and it's difficult to imagine being with the same person forever, at least for me anyways, just because I am always thinking about the fact that there's so many people. So it seems weird to just limit yourself to one person, but at the same time, I know that polyamory and a non-monogamous relationship is not for me, so it's just another set of trade-offs. Woo! Do you believe in meeting the one? I think if you know me, you probably know what I'm going to say about this, and no, I don't think there is one specific person that you are meant to be with. I think there are so many people in the world, and there are so many people that we are compatible with. And I mean, even now, I meet people still, and I feel like a spark of interest, but it's something that I don't act on romantically because I am in a committed, happy relationship. But no, I don't think there's just one person we're meant to be with, and I think that mentality is a bit limiting. I think there's so many people that we can connect with, and I continuously find myself connecting with other people. I definitely don't believe in just one true love, and I think that's a bit, I don't know what the word is. It's just far-fetched. I feel like it's gotten a bit darker in here. Is it me or is it the wine? Does Nick ever get jealous about your past interactions or attraction to women, or is he all about it, and does he want to involve other women in your relationship? Nick does not feel jealous about past interactions with women. He definitely feels more jealous about past interactions with men, but typically I don't think he feels threatened by women, and I think he's more intrigued than jealous. Although there have been a couple of moments, maybe towards the very beginning of our relationship, where he was questioning whether or not I was going to be interested in men long term, or at least interested in him long term, because prior to dating Nick, I had been with my ex for 2 years on and off. And the funny thing about that is she lives in LA now, and she's one of my closest friends, and she's really good friends with Nick as well. So truthfully, I'm really happy that she's still in my life in any capacity, and she's one of the very few people that I really feel like I can openly talk to, and she's a really good listener, and I value her opinion and her advice, and I'm so happy that Nick isn't jealous, because I think it would prevent me from having a close friendship with her, and that would really be unfortunate. She is in a new relationship now. She has another girlfriend who I think is awesome, and there's no weird feelings or anything like that. But as far as Nick wanting to bring other women into the relationship, that is definitely something that we have discussed. To be completely honest, I don't really feel like it's something that I want, just because, I don't know, maybe at some point I'll feel like it's the right move, but right now I'm very content just being in a monogamous relationship. But I don't know, if the situation arose and it felt right, I'm not against bringing someone else into our relationship, but it's not part of my agenda right now, and it's not something that I'm avidly looking for. So sorry, Nick. I think in the beginning he also viewed the idea of bringing another woman into our relationship in any way as some sort of a novelty. And to me, I don't really look at it the same way, because I've had long-term relationships with women, so it's not just like a casual fling or something that I would want to do that casually. I don't want to ruin anyone's fantasy, but speaking from experience, typically encounters with 3 people don't usually work out as you planned, or don't usually work out in the best possible way, unless you have a really, really close relationship with the third person, or you have a really good friendship with them. And then in that case, I think sometimes it can be exciting. But if you're just bringing a stranger into the relationship, for me anyways, it just doesn't feel like that exciting. But I'm also someone who really doesn't like to have any type of one night stands or random flings. That's just never been my style. So I'm sure there are people out there that really enjoy that, and there's nothing wrong with that. So it's just, I guess, personal preference. What would you define as cheating? Is flirting with other people okay when you are in a relationship? All right, I'm going to answer the second part of that first. And I know this will garner a ton of criticism, but yes, I actually think flirting in a relationship is okay if you stick within certain boundaries and if you're being completely honest. Like, you shouldn't be lying and saying that you're single, but I think it's okay to have moments of flirtation, and I think it's actually really healthy because it's normal for us to meet people that we feel attracted to. It's normal to feel human connection with other people, and I don't think we should be fully suppressing that. Like Nick, for example, does sessions on a regular basis with different artists because he's a songwriter. So he's often working with really attractive women, and I'm sure that there have been multiple times where he's felt some sort of connection, especially because they're writing music together and it's very personal. So I'm sure that he's felt attraction on a certain level. I'm sure that he's felt just like a sense of intrigue, and I don't see anything wrong with it as long as he's being honest, as long as he is not lying about the fact that he's in a committed relationship, and as long as he knows where to draw the line. I am not an excessively social person, and in my older years, I definitely tend to isolate myself a lot more than I did when I was younger. When I do go out, which is rare, there will be moments where I'm out somewhere and there's like a little bit of a spark, and I feel like, you know, maybe if I wasn't with my boyfriend, this is somebody that I could pursue in some way. But because I'm in a relationship, I wouldn't do that. But I also don't want to restrict myself from like being human, because that just feels wrong and unnatural. So I say, if you are in a relationship, as long as you're being honest with your partner, as long as you're being open and communicating, like, absolutely go out and have a little flirtatious moment, and then come home to your partner and realize why you love your partner and why you're with them. That's how I feel about that. When I was in Paris, I swear to you, there were so many people that I felt attracted to, and maybe it was because I was just in a different culture and it was all very new and exciting for me, but everywhere I went, there were like very, very attractive people, and it felt really intriguing, but I also felt like I missed Nick while I was gone, and I was telling him about everything that I was doing. It all comes down to just being open and deciding what is appropriate in your relationship. And as far as what cheating is or what defines cheating, I would say that's also something that you have to establish with your partner. But generally, I think anything that feels really intimate and dishonest to your partner. So you could even be emotionally cheating with somebody else by texting with them incessantly. Even if you haven't made any type of sexual contact with that person, I definitely feel like you can have an emotional relationship with somebody that doesn't involve physical contact. So you need to just figure out whether or not you're like putting yourself in a position where you might be lying to your partner, or you might not be honest with your partner, or anything like that. Generally, I would say if you have developed feelings for somebody else and you feel like you're crossing a line, then you probably are, and you might want to evaluate why you're doing that and whether or not it could potentially damage your relationship and hurt your partner. So that's all I'm going to say about that in this moment, but we can talk about that in another video if you guys want. When do you know that it's over in a relationship? I'm going to try to answer this as quickly and concisely as possible, because I think there's a very clear point when you know the relationship is over, and that is when both people involved stop putting work into the relationship. Other than that, I think if a relationship is physically abusive, that should be a for sure sign that it's over. If there is physical abuse, you need to exit the relationship, and I'm going to link some resources below if you feel like you're in an abusive relationship and you're not quite sure how to exit safely. But if the relationship has not become abusive, I think it's over when both people stop putting work in, because relationships involve continuous work. They are a lot of work. People really underestimate that. And I know it's so easy to see people on social media like living these amazing lives and having these incredible relationships, but just know that behind closed doors, relationships are a fucking lot of work, and they take continuous communication and continuous work, and you have to really be invested in the relationship to want to put that work in. And if you don't feel like you want to put that work in, then maybe you aren't as invested in the relationship as you should be. And that's a sign that maybe it's not the right relationship for you. Next question. Have you ever questioned your love for your current partner? And if so, how did you deal with your feelings surrounding it? Did you ever feel any doubt or guilt for feeling this way? This is another yes, absolutely. My relationship with Nick has been the hardest relationship that I've ever had, and that is not meant to shit talk my boyfriend or shit talk our relationship, because obviously I feel committed as I am still in the relationship, but it has certainly been a struggle at times, and it has definitely been really, really difficult in a lot of areas. I do feel like I've always loved Nick, but I've definitely questioned whether or not the relationship is right for me or is right for us. Some of you guys don't know this, but we started doing long distance when I was living in New York and Nick was living in Los Angeles. And the first year and a half, even though it was exciting and passionate and just, it felt amazing in some ways, there were some very, very real red flags. And once I moved to Los Angeles, it became clear to me that major changes needed to happen in order for me to stay in the relationship. And around that time, I asked Nick if he would be open to going to relationship counseling with a therapist, and he said yes. And even though we had only been together for like a year and a half at that point, I thought it was a really positive sign that he was agreeing. And truthfully, my suggestion to anybody who feels like they are struggling in a relationship is to seek outside help via therapy. Even if it's just like once a month to check in and to see where we're at, it really helps to have that outside opinion and to communicate in therapy about anything that might be uncomfortable or provocative or just like stressful to talk about at home, because I think we tend to like avoid talking about things that make us feel stressed out or lead to fights and stuff like that. And it can be really great to talk about it with another person. And I did ask Nick before I filmed this video whether or not it was okay to disclose the fact that we have been in relationship therapy, and he said it was fine, which I thought he would, but I just wanted to double check. And yeah, it's definitely changed our relationship. Usually when we go to therapy, I think we kind of do it the wrong way, because it'll be like when everything comes to a head and we both feel like we're going to explode, then we'll be like, okay, now we need to go back to therapy. But I think therapy is a lot more beneficial when you're going regularly, even if things seem to be functioning smoothly, because then you can avoid those massive conflicts, or you can avoid everything building up. If you are in a relationship and you feel committed, I don't care how long you've been with that person, go to therapy, go on a more regular basis, and it will definitely change your relationship. And if nothing else, it will help you to decide whether or not that relationship is right for you. Because it's possible you could go to therapy, and while you're talking about things, you might feel like, you know what, this actually is not the ideal situation for me. And in that case, I think you're still majorly benefiting from the session, because it's bringing more clarity to your relationship. Do you have any tips for people in long distance relationships? Excuse me. I can definitely give you guys some insight on this, because Nick and I did long distance for about 10 months, I think, before I moved out to Los Angeles. For anyone who is in a long distance relationship, the most important thing is communicating on a regular basis, whether that's texting or FaceTiming or calling or just emailing, whatever. Just checking in with the person to see how they're doing and keep that like spark going, keep the interest alive, and keep it exciting, because obviously you guys aren't seeing each other all the time, so communication is so important. The other thing that's critical is to establish when you will be seeing that person next, and that will give you something to look forward to. That's going to keep things not so open-ended, and it's going to establish a point where you will eventually be together again. So definitely communicate, pick times that you're going to see the person, long distance relationships are difficult, and I think you really have to like the person for them to be strong. I think they are definitely possible, but you gotta keep the spark alive. My camera just died. When I got up to get a new battery, I realized that I'm actually a little bit drunk, but I'm fine. I mean, honestly, I've had probably equivalent of 1 glass of wine, which apparently is too much for me. I am a cheap date. So I think we have enough time for like one more question. I mean, we probably don't have any time for anything, but I'm gonna answer 1 to 2 more questions, and yeah, then we'll call this video a video. Oh wait, there's 2 more that I want to answer. Okay. How does your boyfriend feel about you traveling solo, and are you guys exclusive when you travel? Nick and I are both very independent people, and I think it's nice when we have trips separately as well as trips together, but it's nice sometimes to be apart from the person, especially when you've been dating for so long, because it almost makes you miss the person a bit more. I think we're both very supportive towards the other person when we're both traveling separately. And yes, we are exclusive when traveling. Tomorrow I'm actually going on a trip by myself. I'm going back to the East Coast to see my family, and I'm super excited, and I'm sure Nick will be like missing me, obviously, but it's gonna be nice to have that space from each other so that when we reconnect, we feel even closer. Is it possible for people to change? And if they don't change, how many times should you try before you give up? I hate when people say people don't change, because that is absolutely not the case. People don't change when they don't want to change or when they're not ready to change, but people can absolutely change, and it has been proven time and time again in my relationships, but you can't force somebody else to change. They have to be willing and open to change. So like Nick and I, for example, like I discussed earlier in the video, both agreed to go to relationship therapy because we wanted to work on how we treated each other and how we communicated in our relationship. And we were both open and willing to do that, and I think that we both have changed in a lot of ways. I can especially speak on Nick's behalf and say that he has made great changes in the relationship, and I don't want to say he's a different person than the person that I met, but I think that he's a much better person than the person that I met, better at dealing with emotions in a relationship, and he's better at communicating. There's still a lot of things we can both do to better ourselves and better the way that we interact with each other, but you know, it's always a work in progress. I would say if somebody is not open to change, that's a big red flag, and you should really evaluate where the relationship is going. It really depends on what you want to change though. If you want to change everything about your partner, and if you're not happy in a lot of different areas, there's a good chance that the relationship is just not right for you, or that your partner is just not a compatible person for you. If you're asking a person to change like basic characteristics about their personality that aren't necessarily negative, I think that you should evaluate what you're looking for in the relationship, and you know, what qualities are important to you, because maybe you would find those qualities in someone else, and that's just me being blunt. If you want to change something physically about the other person, I think you should also kind of evaluate what the relationship means to you, because you shouldn't really be trying to change physical qualities about the other person. Now, this is going to sound controversial, and this is going to sound really fucking honest, but you know, sometimes in relationships, people get too comfortable and they kind of let themselves, I don't know if getting lazy is the right term, because I don't really think that necessarily is, but people stop working on improving themselves, and that can include improving themselves physically. Now, I'm not saying you need to go out and change yourself cosmetically, but I do think that sometimes people tend to stop caring about what they look like when they feel comfortable in a relationship. And I think it's always important to maintain a positive image of yourself, not just for your partner, but also for yourself. So if you feel like your partner is kind of slacking in that department, or you feel like you might be slacking in that department, I think it's okay for the other person to kind of keep you in check a little bit. I know for Nick and myself, both of us feel so much better physically and mentally when we are being active and when we are working out. So if one of us notices that the other person is kind of like falling off on being fit or being active, I think it's okay to kind of check the person a little bit. Obviously, you don't want to insult the person, and you're not trying to like insult their body, but I mean, both of us feel much better when we're active. So I think the best way to handle that is to ask the person if they want to do something with you or to get involved with something active together without sounding like you're attacking the person's physical physique. On that same note, I think Nick and I both feel the most attracted to each other when we're feeling as comfortable and confident in our own bodies that we can feel, and that happens when we are being active and when we're eating healthy and just making healthy lifestyle choices. We're never like overly critical. We're never like telling the other person that they should change their physical appearance, but we do encourage each other to like get in shape, and I think that's actually really healthy. And when it comes to other changes in the relationship, maybe if your partner struggles with anger issues, and it's not abusive, but you do feel like it's threatening the relationship, I think approaching your partner in a calm, rational way, suggesting different options, and just articulating how their behavior is making you feel. Hopefully, the person cares about you enough that they are open to what you have to say and they're receptive to it, and they actually want to make those changes to better your relationship. So, you know, if they're open to change and they're avidly putting in work, I think it's worth sticking around to see where that goes. But if they're totally closed off to it and they want nothing to do with it, or they refuse to acknowledge that there's any type of a problem, then that's not a great sign. I can't tell you if somebody will change or not. Everyone's different, but I very much believe people are capable of changing when they are given the right tools and when they are open-minded and when they are receptive to the fact that changes need to be made. Man, this video is so long. Are you guys still watching? Is anyone still out there? I'm looking at my questions right now and I have like 10 more questions on this list. I don't know what I was thinking or why I thought I could fit them all in one video, but if you guys were able to stick it out this long, let me know if you would be interested in a second video, because I'm happy to make one for you if you find it interesting or informative, or you just like hearing me talk. I do want to say that I also got a ton of questions about sex, and I don't think they were inappropriate. I think the majority of them were really interesting questions, but I didn't want to put any like specific sex questions in this video because I didn't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. And if I make a video addressing questions about sex, I think I want them to all be like in the same video. I think I'm very capable of approaching those subjects in a mature way. Let's hope. So if you're interested in a video on those type of things, then let me know. I know my mom watches all of my content and would not be interested in hearing me talk about that. So sorry, Mom, she will have to definitely skip that video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for all of your amazing questions. I wish I could have answered more of them in this video, but I just fucking talk for so long. I really need to like limit my words. I need to talk less and be more to the point. I hope you are all having an amazing night. I look forward to seeing you in my next video, and I will talk to you then.